Blades Ramble are proudly supported by our main channel sponsor, My Business Group, a group of brands designed to support owners, leaders and managers in business. If you're looking to grow your business, contact mybusinessgroup.co.uk today for more information or follow the link in the description below. And as this is hot off the presser, we're proudly sponsored by High Point Access Limited, your number one-stop shop for all your working at heights and roofing needs. If you mention the Ramble when you're asking for a quote, you'll receive 10% off any works. Find their details in all the links below. Thank you to High Point Access Limited for your continued support of the Blades Ramble.
Blades fans, subscribe to Blades Ramble. Up the Blades.
What is happening, Blades, and welcome back to the Blades Ramble. I am, of course, Jimmy, and this is hot off the presser. Which one are we going for? Should we go for that? Yeah, we'll go that. Something a bit different, eh? So, Ruben Selles has just finished his press conference with ahead of the Birmingham game and answered all the questions with the fallout from that Bristol City performance. Oh, dearie me. It wasn't great news. It was in line with what, obviously, it's going to be slightly different, but we're in line with what we were saying this morning. Nothing appears imminent, other than he did say one or two, hopefully, will be with us before the weekend. So whether that's central defenders, which is exactly what we need, we'll have to wait and see. But we started the press conference with some interesting takes on it. Andy Giddins, Radio Sheffield, starts us off and said basically what went wrong. What went wrong at the weekend? And he said, yeah, the game hurt us. He said, for me, it wasn't a defensive thing. Let me give you his full context before I comment on it. It's more a transitional thing. We've actively, easy for me to say, we've actively been working to correct these things. And that's been the main focus this week from the fallout from the game in terms of setting ourselves through the transition and knowing what we're supposed to be doing. I think that's part of it. In terms of the transition, but that's your defensive transition. So it is it's from losing the ball to how do you reset? How do you structure yourself to defend what's coming at you? So for me, it was a defensive thing. I disagree with the manager there. I think yes, the transition is part of it. What he's saying basically is players knowing their individual roles, not the fact that it was purely a defensive issue. I think a lot of it was the defensive issue. You look at the positioning, which is part of the transition. I think they're one in the same, and I think they're intertwined in that situation, because good defenders can transition and adapt to what you want them to do defensively. So I disagree with his first point straight away. I know he's trying to take the heat off the defence, and that makes sense. We've got young defenders. In fact, if you take out even the Jack Robinson and Reese Norrington-Davies debacle aside, we've got young defenders in Harrison Burrows, Femi Siriki and Tyler Binden. The last thing you want them thinking is, this is all on us, this is, heads down and all this sort of thing. So he's got to cushion them in some sort of way, but I would be worried if he didn't think that the defence as a whole was a huge issue on Saturday. Were you surprised, says Andy, about the result? He says, no, I wasn't surprised. Pre-season, we did what we needed to do. Andy, the context. They speak so fast in these press conferences. I've tried doing what a couple have suggested I do, and recorded it and got a voice recorder. I'm going to have to try different apps for that. See if they can catch everything he's saying. So I've only jotted down one or two words for the questions so I could get all the answers in. But Andy sort of said, are you surprised at this performance considering how well you played in pre-season, particularly against stronger opposition like Nice and Fulham? And he says, no, I'm not surprised. In pre-season, we did what we had to do. But it's not easy to translate. It's not something you're able to easily translate into the stress of a real game situation, and I think that's fair. There was elements of the game, like goals going in against us, where they are emotional moments in the game. He's right. It's a mindset thing. It's a mentality. That's why we need leaders, in my opinion, something that we've been talking about an awful lot. And he said, emotional moments, we need to react better and not let it affect us. Easier said than done, but he's absolutely bang on. It's a mentality thing as much as it is an ability thing. I think we all talked about it. The heads appeared to go down at 3 and 4. And what he's saying is, we can't have that. You need to have the mentality to stay in the game and believe that you can come back into it. It's one game. I understand that, says Andy. But how do you change now? How do you adapt to that situation and build and go again? And he says we need to adjust to the mistakes that we made. We were too naive and too open in possession at times. We need better behaviours in our counter press. So I think he means more discipline in what we were doing. We need structure and behaviour when we lose the ball. That is his job. That is his job to do. And that's not a criticism from me, but that's clearly something he's identified that he needs to drill into these players. Are these players capable of doing it? And if they're not, then we need players that do, because we have left it so late in the window now. It's frightening to a degree. Reese Norrington-Davies came off at the weekend. You decided to substitute Reese Norrington-Davies as Andy, and he came off to some cheers from some sections of the fan base. Have you spoken to him about it? He says, yeah, I spoke to him afterwards. He's a pro and he'll accept it the best that he can. The decision made was not only made to protect him, but it was also so we could adapt during the game as well and sort of change things around. So it was identified that he was playing really poorly, and he wanted to protect him in terms of not only because he wasn't playing well, but obviously Reese will recognise he wasn't playing well. And then he talks about the mentality, doesn't he? And that can sort of, you can get swallowed up in your own thoughts about how you're playing and how you're doing, and it was to protect him, he said. Briefly mentioned Birmingham before coming on to him again a little bit later. How do you prepare for Birmingham then? Do you go with the same team, or do you try different players? He said, well, it's not that simple really, said Ruben. It would be easier if the game was tonight, and then he could go with more first teamers because you've got an extra day to recover. But because we're playing tomorrow, and there's not a 4-day turnaround until Saturday, he says we have to have more time to recover. So there will be changes tonight, and some of the players that were also playing well through pre-season and have earned their chance, they will get time to play. So there will be changes, basically, what he said tomorrow night, just because of the way the fixtures have fallen, with us being the Wednesday night game rather than the Tuesday night game. He said, well, that includes Samare, your new signing. He says, yeah, he's ready to play and he'll get minutes tomorrow, definitely. Any news on any incomings? Something that we all want to know about. And he said, we have to understand it's one defeat, but nothing changes with what I've already said. We are looking for quality players and I want top defenders. There's no news on incomings at the moment. So that doesn't mean absolutely nothing's happening. He did allude later then, I think in this question actually, so we'll come to it straight away. Are you frustrated though, says Andy? A lot of the fan base are looking at the way things are at the moment, and it looks like you've got a depleted squad. Good question from Andy Giddins. He said, I wish I had the players. If I'm being honest, I wish I had the players. But I still think we had enough on Saturday to play better than, or to do better than we did. I'm not one for excuses, but if young players have to come in and step up, then that's what we'll do. And then they can be helped later on in the transfer window. Hopefully tomorrow, this was the key line. So that kind of leaves you sloughened a little bit, doesn't it? And you think, oh, well, clearly nothing's really happening. And then he just chucks this little gem in. Hopefully tomorrow we'll have 1 or 2 for the weekend. Hopefully tomorrow we'll have 1 or 2 in. They won't be ready for the Birmingham game, but they might be ready for the weekend. So we're expecting signings tomorrow. It certainly appeared so from the way I interpreted what he said. And then Andy went on, well, departures then. Obviously you want to keep your best players, but what's the situation there? He said, I'll be disappointed now if someone goes before another one comes in. We can't allow that to happen anymore. Pretty straight to the point, that one. We can't allow that to happen anymore. Like he's already been a little bit frustrated with what's happened. That, again, my interpretation of it. So, what do you make to Birmingham then? That was Andy's next question. Andy's final question. He says, tremendous. We played them with Reading last season, and as soon as they got going, they steamrolled the league. He said they were really, really good in League One. He said they had a great first game of the season. Although it finished 1-1, they seemed to control Ipswich and they'll be a really difficult opponent tomorrow night. Danny Hall then came in and said, what about Robbo's future then? He didn't say it quite like that, sorry. What about Robbo's future? It's come under some speculation. And he reiterated, he didn't say it wouldn't happen. He said, I'll reiterate, nobody should go before we get anyone in. Jack's a good player, and right now he's our captain. Is that a nail in a coffin or what? That is that in it. That is that. Do you want him to stay? Says Danny. Great question. I love these sort of direct questions that he's never going to answer, because he can't. There is no right answer to this question. If he says yeah, and then he ends up going, then the board are selling him out from under him. And if he says no, I don't want him to stay, then what? Not only does that forge a terrible relationship with the player, but it also weakens our position as a selling club. So there's no right answer to it, but it's just a straight down the line question. Do you want him to stay? And he put, well, we never say never. We'll wait and see. He's our player, he's our captain, and he's ready to play tomorrow. So he didn't answer the question really. Danny sort of alluded to, look, you talk about Jack Robinson, Reese Norrington-Davies, and if they are to leave the football club, then there's not many leaders. Or he didn't sort of say it this way. I don't want to sort of misconstrue what he's saying, but are you targeting leadership basically for your recruitment? Is it like at the back of your mind when you're recruiting players? It's not at the back of my mind. It's right at the front of my mind. It's right up there. I've been there before, where you get too excited by too many youngsters, which is something that our fan base, me included, have been sort of concerned about, thinking that we need more championship experience in this side. He said, I've been there before with too many youngsters where you get excited about it. It needs to be a mix, and those experienced players need to be able to help the youngsters grow. And Danny said, well, what about the development players then that come into the squad? You know, players like Jefferson Caceres and Ukaki. He says, well, it's a mix. I like to work with young, talented players, but also that experience of relegation battles, promotion battles, top six battles in the championship. You need that blend. You need that within your changing room to have a successful mix. And he put, Danny also said, another really interesting question. When you hear about Jack Robinson having interest from other clubs and Reese Norrington-Davies having interest from other clubs, how do you handle that? Do you sit down and speak to them? Do you sort of say to them, no, you're going to stay here and keep your mind on the job and stick, while you're playing for Sheffield United? He said, well, no, actually, he says it's a conversation for individuals, and every circumstances are unique. But we're all human, and I understand that, these things can affect players. We all need to be respectful of that the fact that we understand where everyone's situation is. And I understand that minds can wander, but they also need to be aware of their responsibilities as players at this football club, and also be respectful of their teammates as well and give their all for the cause. Really, really strong answer, really well put. And that's it, isn't it? That's straight down. I'm liking everything I'm hearing from him in terms of just a straight batter. I think he's come across real. I'll come on to that at the end, but I think he comes across really well. It doesn't always translate to success on the field, so that's not everything that you're looking for in a manager. And Chris Wilder was certainly a straight talker as well, so I'm not comparing the two in that regard. But I love the fact that he's not guarded. He's just being open and honest about some of his conversations with the players. Danny then finished on Michael Cooper. There's been some concerns about him being unfit and maybe needing some attention. He says, yeah, there's no fitness concerns. If he's not in the squad tomorrow, it won't be for fitness reasons. Don't believe you, but I do believe that it's not for fitness reasons. I don't think it's as serious an injury. I think he is carrying an injury, and this is just from what I've heard. It's not what Ruben said, obviously. I think he is carrying an injury. I don't think it's quite as serious as some had feared. So I'm not expecting him to play tomorrow, but I expect him back in the squad on Saturday. Then there was a third interviewer that I didn't know who it was, to be honest. So he said, Ruben, that some of the young players you said have impressed you. Can you let us know who of the development players have impressed you the most? And he said, well, Jefferson Caceres and Ukaki probably. Both have worked really hard through pre-season. He said, unfortunately, Chris got injured. That's I said Christian. That's where Chukwu got injured, and Mikhail came in late. Was that Polendikov, the right back? He says But what I want to say about these players is they need space to grow. I'm not going to immediately put pressure on them to be key players in the first team. I think we shouldn't pressure them. Sets the stall out straight away for the fan base, letting us know these are development signings. These are not first team players. So at the minute, admittedly by the club, we have 3 signings that have come in to play for the first team, and that's the 2 that played at the weekend, which is Louis Barry and Tyler Binden, both on loan. In fact, Samari, the third player who didn't play but will play at the weekend, in midweek, tomorrow night, also a loan. 3 loans. 3 loans, no permanent signings, not even a free transfer in for the first team. We need to get moving. Do we expect to see them from the bench then, said the interviewer, tomorrow night? He said one of them maybe tomorrow, either off the bench or he'll start. But you can't develop everyone at the same time, otherwise it becomes counterproductive and you're just putting out a team that isn't strong enough to win the game. Really smart, and agree. And I think it'll be Okaki that he's talking about, because there's rumours of Jeff moving on, isn't there? And that wasn't actually mentioned, which I was surprised about. It's big moves for them, isn't it? Coming from different countries and moving countries. You've done that yourself, said the interviewer. Can you let us know what the most important thing is for somebody coming to a new country? And he said language is always the first thing, really. Be able to communicate. Everyone will more than help each other in the changing room, but you need to create a platform to be calm off the pitch so that you're able to play well on the pitch. Also, the second thing we look at is training to the tempo of the championship, which is also really important, so they can get up to speed as soon as possible. He said, how do you help them integrate then? He said, well, it's not black and white. So you look at Jeff, for example. He's from South America. We need to see what he needs. Has he got a place to live? We need to sort that out for him. Get him his basic needs. Is there family around him? They may sound like simple questions, but they're the most important. Then, once that's all sorted, they can focus on the football. He said, you mentioned tempo of the championship. Is that a really important thing that you train at the tempo that the championship is? He says, yeah, the championship, I would say the tempo in the championship is up there in the top 10 in the world, especially now there's been more of an emphasis on the ball in play. It's a big thing now in the top 2 divisions in this country. We try and train harder than we play. We play to a really high tempo in training, and this is what we try and do. And that was it. That was the last question, and just some sort of peripheral questions for the last section. But I think he speaks really well, and that doesn't mean everything. We've seen a lot of managers come and go, not necessarily just at Sheffield United, but who are really good talkers and can talk the talk, if you like. But I think he talks a lot of sense. Maybe not as much as Andy the Blade, but he talks a lot of sense. And I like what I hear from him. And I don't get any impression that he's a yes man whatsoever. He's a straight talker in terms of what we know and the little bits that we know about away from the pitch as well. I think he's a fairly straight batter. I think some things like saying that Cooper's absolutely fine, I wouldn't expect him to say, actually, yeah, he's carrying a knock, because then you're just giving Swansea a little bit of a glimpse at you and stuff like that. So just smart from Sayers. And, you know, hopefully he's right in terms of 1 or 2. If it is 1 or 2 coming in before the Swansea game, one needs to be a central defender. I think one will be Wu, but I might be wrong on that. One might be Tim from Everton, who we know both are in discussions. Zetterstrom, I believe, is also in discussion. So there's all thoughts of plate spinning at the moment. So easy for Chris Eubank to say. Right, so let's get into some of your comments then and see what you have to say about it. First up, it's Buddhist Blade says it's a gap we're going through, knowing we can't judge where we are in all this, as best transfer deals are going to be later in this month. That's true. Saturday first half was positive and Barry was very good. Well said. Nate says, come on Ruben, give us some good news. Up the Blades, up the Ramble, up the Ruben Selles era. Oh, nice. Brett says, the problem is the league is really strong this year. You can only afford a couple of slip-ups or you could find yourself chasing very early. It is very strong, Brett, but don't you think that'll sort of counterbalance itself as well? So, like, because it's strong, anyone can beat... It's always been a case of anyone can beat anyone in the champ, isn't it? Hasn't it? But that might work in our favour in terms of teams don't run away from us while we're still trying to adapt. We'll wait and see. Tom says, afternoon, Jim. Hoping for some good news before going down to Brumland tomorrow. Well, let me know what you thought of that, Tom. Let me know what you thought. It's clearly going to be a a mixed team into a rotated side from what he was saying, just because the Swansea game is so close. Just hoping that we can get some bodies over at line for league game. But we'll be here to watch it. For those that aren't going down to Birmingham, myself and George Motson will be on the channel watching it. I think it's from 7:30 tomorrow night, so join us for that. Chris says, massively concerned at the pace on which we are conducting transfer business. Yep. We need to see incomings before the mood is going to lift. Defeat at Birmingham tomorrow. Defence is still as weak. Ruben confirmed no new incomings in the next 24 to 48 hours. Yeah, he did. No, I think what he said was we may have 1 or 2 in the next 1 to 2 days, but it won't be quick enough to play against Birmingham. I'm pretty sure that's what he said. Jared says, I thought he spoke very well again and seems to be crying for defenders. It's good he realises he needs experience and not just potential. Also good, it's a one-in, one-out basis now. Well, he's saying that, to be honest, it's the first little bit of pushback, a Wilderism, if you will. A little bit of pushback on his stance. And it's sort of laying, we cannot allow that to happen now where players are being sold without players coming in. Now he said that, the board definitely can't do that, can they? Because they know the fan base will know then that the board are acting away from what the manager wants. I think it's a bold statement to come out with, and again, that points towards him not being a yes man for me. Because he said we cannot let that happen anymore. So he's laid down the gauntlet. He's laid down the gauntlet, Anti, to the board and said, no one's going out before someone comes in. Which I really enjoyed, to be honest. Finn says, everything just seems negative at the minute, not feeling confident at all. We're low, aren't we? Because we know we need enforcements, but I think we'll get them. I think we'll get them. It's just how quickly can we get them, Finn? That's the concern, because you do start to lose ground. Matt says, I've dusted my boots off just in case we're short the weekend. Thank you, Matt. We might need you, pal. Neil says, afternoon, Jimmy. To be honest, I'm not bothered about the cup game. We have enough on our plate in sorting ourselves for the league games. And Ben HD says we're looking at Godfrey from the MLS. Godfrey from the MLS? Ben Godfrey from the MLS. He doesn't play in the MLS, does he? Plays for Atalanta. Not. It's the Italian Atalanta. It's not. Not Atlanta. Yeah, Serie A club, Atalanta. It's not the MLS, pal. John says, am I the only person who genuinely thought at half-time we would still win 4-2? How wrong can you be? Like watching 2 different games, but both abysmal at the back. Yes, I agree. I thought we had every chance of coming out in the second half and going at them like we finished the first half. Because I thought we were really good for the last 30, 35 minutes of the first half. We were peppering them, weren't we? And that's where all our huge XG numbers came from, and we looked really exciting going forward. I remember my dad turning to me and saying, I'm enjoying this. I know we're down, but I'm enjoying this. And then obviously the second half happened and it got away from us really quickly. Finn says, not sure why the owners bought a football club and it sounds like they know naught about English football. You can use AI, fair enough, but we need something like a director of football as well. The man is on Planet Deluded. Which man, pal? Which man? Selles? Is that who we're saying is deluded? Why is he deluded? I'm open to a chat about it. I'm not shooting you down at all. Do you think he's deluded for his original comments on the defensive transition? Because that was something I didn't agree with. None of the owners who run this club have ever played football. He's deluded. So Phil's saying the owners are deluded. The owners need to come out and face the supporters. The silence is deafening. I don't think we'll get it. I think the closest we'll get will be Stephen Bettis coming out representing the board rather than the owners coming out themselves. Maury says, why is everyone calling for Ruben Selles' head already? I don't think everyone is, Maury. I think it's a minority who were wounded by what happened on Saturday. I don't think for a second the board wants us to fail despite murmurs. My only negatives is the board needs to act swiftly. Yeah, I agree with that, pal. Jack says, this is not sounding good, lads. We can count promotion off. After one game, Jack. The new owners have absolutely left Ruben Selles out to dry. He'll quickly become an scapegoat. Or a scapegoat. What are they doing to Caceres? It's disgusting. What they are doing to Caceres is disgusting. I don't think it is. If Ruben Selles has come in and looked at a new player and thought, you're not good enough, then Yeah, I know he's been moved more for a technicality by the sound of it for this ESC. You can only have 4, which is in itself is a shambles in terms of how we've operated that. But if he's not good enough, he's not good enough. So he can move out of the club. That is just football. We can't keep players around just to be nice. I don't think it's disgusting, Beast Boy, to be fair. I don't blame any players who want to leave after this summer with the board. I don't think any players want to leave, from what I understand, other than the obvious one who might be going to Wales. Skyblade says, Adams, Sariki, R&D, McCallum, Samari Peck, O'Hare. Oh, Adam Davis. Oh, is this your team, pal? Adam Davis, Sariki, R&D, Robbo, McCallum, Samari Peck, O'Hare, One, Cannon, and Brooks. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. Is that your team? I haven't even thought about my team, pal. I think it'd be heavily rotated, but you might not be far off, to be honest. I don't think R&D and Robbo will play. I'll be amazed, to be honest. I think there's more chance of Sasnaukas and maybe Robbo, just because of what he said, but I'd be surprised to see Robbo in the lineup, to be honest. I think he's on his way. Scott says, got a feeling we'll have a buyback on Jeff if he's sold to Scotland, similar to the Archer deal from Villa. I saw that online too, pal. I saw somebody comment online. I think it was Darren Smith, weren't it, that said that. So, yes, possibly. Sounds like he's not in charge of who comes in or who goes out. No, I don't agree with that. This is not the way to go. If you think we're going up, then think again. Not a chance with these owners who don't get what Sheffield, I assume is about. I think he said at the beginning that he's got final say, didn't he, on who comes in. It doesn't. I think who goes out, he'll have been frustrated with the NL thing, but it's understandable. I think we're all in the same boat with that. And I just think we were left too short for the weekend. Bean says, I don't think Sayers is helping himself with the way he's speaking. He will get a lot more support from the fans if he came and spoke similar to fans in terms of we need defenders. He sounds a yes man currently. He should be demanding players. He's going to lose the fans very quickly. It's not his fault. It's the board's. But he needs to be more assertive with the board and not be a pushover. I think, to be honest, you've sort of, and I don't mean this in a funny way, Bean, you've sort of contradicted yourself there. You're saying he needs to come out and speak up so the fans understand that he realises that he needs defenders. Then you're saying it's not his fault because he knows what we need. All right, that's where I'm taking from you. I might be wrong, pal, so apologies if I am. I don't think he can come out and say, I don't know what this board's doing, or the board needs to move, or we need defenders in quick, or anything like that, because they've just sacked our most successful manager ever for similar behaviour, I would say. So a man who's trying to prove himself at this level, I don't think he's going to come out and say something like that. I think he's been smart with how he's worded it in terms of we can no longer have people leaving this football club without replacements, and that is the message that he's sent. And I think it's a reasonable message to send. Say if we're on second competitive game, he can't go off hell for leather on his employers already, can he? Seen online, Chris Mepham is on his way. I don't think he is, pal. I've certainly not heard any mention of his name in. No, I don't think he is. Don't know where you've seen it though, pal. He's not going to win over anyone over denying defensive issues. That's what got me, Bill. That's what got me. And I think he's trying to protect his defenders, his young defence, saying it's more transitional than it is the defence itself. I understand why he said it, but I don't think it's right. And I don't think anybody is fooled by it, to be honest. He's right in terms of the transition. We need to get the defensive transition right when we're all caught out of position and stuff. Femi Sariki's furthest one forward half at time. That is part of the defensive transition. He needs to be back and he needs to be able to protect his space. It's a criticism we've had of him for a long, long time. Harrison Burrows, who was asked to bomb forward as well, needs to be back. If you're going to go forward, you need to be part of the defensive transition is to be back. How many times did Tyler Binden get left on his own with a counter-attack from Bristol City? So, yeah, I agree, Bill. Says isn't going to sit in an interview and go, yep, lads, we're screwed. That will cause more upset and doubt than there already is. Gaza says the owners need to come out and tell us what the ambitions are, how they're going to take the club forward. They won't, though, Gaz. They would say, why? They would say, why do we need to come and tell you that? Why don't we just show you? Why don't we do what we need to do? I agree with you. I think I would love to see that. And I think Betis will be the one that comes out and speaks to the fan base because he understands the fan base. I know he has his critics, but he's done a lot of good work for this football club, and I think he will be the man to sort of be the spokesperson for the board going forward. I'll be surprised if or I've been told that his plans are for him to come out over the next few weeks and sort of address things, probably after the transfer window. Pretty sure Brighton got to where they are, not using AI on only the Bulgarian league. Owners hoping they find the next Berbatov in that market, which seems unlikely. Yeah, I think I'm not happy with the Bulgarian link. I think wasn't somebody associated with the board have shares in Botdev Plovdiv. I think we bought 2 or 3 players from there. It all sounds a little bit fishy to me. That I don't like it. Don't like it at all. And now we're selling a player that we've already brought in early doors, and it just doesn't sit right. Doesn't sit right. All we can do now is focus on how we're going to improve going forward. Jack says can be almost be certain that this rebuild will never be finished. Well, it never is usually at a club, but I know what you mean, pal. Mark says, Jimmy, get a dictaphone and place it between the press and the manager. Up the Blades, up the Ramble. Yeah, but then it'd just play back to me, wouldn't it? And I'd be on. I need something that records notes in front of me, and there are plenty of apps that do it. I think Otter's the one I'm going to try next, because people are saying that that's the one to use. I write them down currently. Bill says this squad showed its mentality could wobble at key moments last season, even under Wilder. It's worrying that no one above says at the club noticed that on the recruitment side. Agreed. Leadership, absolutely essential. I will give it 10 games, but the start was worrying, being a big shift in the whole club, though, moving away from what we know. Never had a successful foreign manager, let alone all the other changes. When you say never, this is our second. So we've hardly given it a proper go, have we? I think Slav was a complete shift from everything we knew. And to be honest, the same could be said of Sayers. So if they're going to shift to this, they need to commit to it, don't they? Otherwise, it could be long and painful. Matt says, if you wanted to look into some things to make taking down live presses easier, I've used an app called Otter AI at work. It's a paid service, but works almost spot on every time. I will have a look at that, pal. Thank you. It's no wonder Wilder went. What he knew these owners were going to do, sell our assets and bring in loans and free transfers. They will not spend a penny. It sounds to me like Sayers, the owners, puppets, up the Blades, up the Ramble. I disagree, Paul, but you're entitled to that. Let's be right. Wilder didn't leave. Wilder was sacked. So Wilder would have stayed had he had the opportunity to stay. But either way, he's gone now into, unfortunately for a lot of us, we will now get behind Ruben Sayers. I disagree that I think he's a puppet. I disagree just with some of the stuff he was saying there as well. David says, nice hot off the presser just when we had put Bristol City out of my mind. Here we go again. It's done now. It's in the rear view. No promotion pushing team does business like this. It needs sorting and fast, says Jack. Why should we have to adapt? 92 points last year. Yeah, I agree. I agree. But we are where we are, aren't we, Paul? We are exactly where we are. I think I would have stuck with Chris Wilder. I don't mean to play, I don't mean to sort of get it twisted any which way. I wanted Chris Wilder to stay, but Ruben Sayers is here now, and he'll have my support because he's the manager of our club. So we're trying to get on board with what the new ownership are doing. And it's not always... Okay, don't know what you're saying there, Michael. It's not always easy, is it, Paul? And I get that, mate. It's going to take some doing. I disagree, His Holiness, the Dalai Lama's comments. Barry wasn't in the game very much. But I agree we were very good for much of the first half after the first 10 minutes. Please get us some defenders. I disagree, His Holiness, the Dalai Lama's comments. I don't know what you mean, Tim. But yes, you agree that we're good for the... Okay, you want defenders. Beast Boy says, couldn't believe that Nachukwu thing I read this morning. Yeah, me neither. He's allegedly been trafficked earlier on in his career, hasn't he? So people have been in a lot of bother for his registration and things. Doesn't affect Sheffield United in any which way. Billy says, I don't view Ruben as a yes man per se, but will he manage upwards in the same way that CW did? I don't think so. He said himself he prefers the coaching side of it, and that he doesn't want transfer updates 24 hours before a game so he can focus on the game. We need a director of football if that's the case, because who else is on top managing the situation? Yeah, we will have people between there, won't we? My concern is does it just jump straight up to Stephen Bettis now, and does he or Carl Schieber, who is the one between the manager and the board now that Stephen Bettis is on the board? Is there an intermediary there? Like Billy says, could we do with somebody managing and overseeing transfers? If we're now going to take on this model of, wider recruitment, and the club has a sustainable model that we have over generations, or whatever the plan is, then surely it goes beyond this manager and the next manager and the next manager, and we have to set a structure in place that allows us to be successful. So that would be people above the manager as well. I completely agree with Bill. Hi Jim, am I correct in thinking that Matty Zetterstrom will also be a youth player and not a first teamer? Cheers, pal. He is deemed to be a high potential player. So from the way it was described to me, he wasn't being brought in. This was when Anel was still at the club, but he wasn't being brought in to be an immediate first teamer. So I wouldn't have expected to nudge out Bindon or Anel, but he can also compete and push for the first team. So he is like a strong backup, I think. But at the moment, if he were to come in first, obviously he would be used. That was the way it was described to me, Joe. Sheila's Wheel says, obviously unhappy with the timing of Anel's departure. Hints to the board. I agree with that. That's exactly what he was doing. And I think it was a very subtle way of doing it so early in his tenure as well. Matt says he talks so good, but if he wants leaders and old heads, why are we going for him at the Swedish centre half? Oh, Matty, just saying. Yeah, absolutely right, mate. We haven't been linked with many leaders, have we? Many sort of championship stalwarts. Brett says that might be the case. The strength of the division slowing the league down. Either way, I think a few signings and you'll be in the mix all season. Yeah, I hope so, pal. Hope so. Wuchuku not even played 1 minute of football for us yet. Bizarre. It is bizarre. Kershaw says it's always a big gamble replacing so many players and a manager all in one window. It's crazy, mate. It's crazy. And I don't mind it if you're going to start early and give us the full summer to do it. But now we're well into we're into the first week of the season. First game's gone, and we're scrambling now. Why aren't we doing business earlier on when we know that there's so much turnover that we want to do? Michael says these new owners are worrying me. I think they're a bit clueless selling players and bringing no one in is a bit stupid. Makis says I'm not bothered about the cup, but I don't want to see us getting battered again this week. We need to be like the first half, attacking and dangerous. I agree with that. Jonathan says give Ruben a chance. We certainly will. I know some. You probably responded to some in the comments. The majority will. I understand those that are unsure as well, because it's a little bit of a poison chalice, isn't it, coming in after Chris Wilder, especially when you get off to a poor start. But the majority of people will back Ruben Selles. He's our manager, isn't he? He's the manager of our club. Jonathan says, where I see a lot of talk about Ruben Selles getting the sack, I have seen people talking about that since day one. But how long would Selles last before walking if he doesn't get what he wants? Good question. I don't think we're anywhere near that conversation. I think if we're looking 10 games time, he's not had a successful window in what he deems to be appropriate signings coming in, and the results aren't going well. There maybe is a danger of that, but I'd be surprised. He's worked in a lot tougher circumstances than Sheffield United, hasn't he? So we'll wait and see. Trusty Rufus says we got promoted when Coventry did the same to us and beat us 4-1. Yeah, well, fingers crossed that. I don't know you follow Trusty Rufus, but fingers crossed that happens to us then. Billy says Ruben deserves patience 100%. The board, on the other hand, are testing our collective patience at the minute. How much are we getting for Robinson? Says a comment here. A modest fee, I believe. A modest fee. Jonathan says give Ruben a chance. It's clear Ruben knows what players and positions we need to strengthen. It's down to the board to back him now. I don't think it's clear. That he knows where we need to strengthen, but it's clear he knows we need to strengthen. He hasn't said we need 2 centre-backs or we need so-and-so, so-and-so, and he's not going to do that, but he does know that we need to strengthen. I don't know if he knows where. We're never going to agree, are we, I suppose? Jack says the board haven't covered themselves in glory and haven't won the fans over at all. It's a shame because I do like Ruben. If, and it's a big if, says Scott, says believes he can get 2 in over the next couple of days, then players have to be Tim and Sol, right? As Jeff needs selling and Zetterstrom will need visa checks. I would have thought so, but there's always the chance, and I said this morning on my transfer update, Scott, I don't know everything that's going on at the club. I can only tell you what I'm able to share and what I know about. I think there will, there's rumours that a transfer is absolutely imminent. I would expect that to happen very soon, and that sort of lines up with what he was saying this morning. I didn't expect 2 so soon, so There will be things that sometimes surprise me as well. But in terms of what I've been told, it wouldn't surprise me if it was those two. And that in itself, Scott, whilst it's great, still not two centre-halves, is it? Still not what we need. James says, Sol and a quality centre-back away from looking much stronger. Fingers crossed they're in by Friday. Absolutely right. Think I've joined the Ramble now. Love the channel. Thank you, Trusty Rufus. Much appreciated. Ben says he's not a yes man. No matter what you do for work, you'll always have someone to answer to. I agree. Tom says, certainly going to be a tough game tomorrow, regardless of the side Brum put out, as they have the depth of squad we could only dream of at the minute. Hopefully, the two incomings are top-class centre-backs for Saturday. I would love it. I think that's needed more than anything. Certainly one top-class centre-back. I think Bindon will be decent alongside someone strong. Jack says, I get we need to get to the Prem for the money and sustainability, but we are far from ready on and off the pitch. Me and Dave the Nose were talking about that this morning, actually. I believe, Little Bully says, I believe we've overreacted, and when we've got 5 signings in, the tides will turn swiftly, but I'm still disappointed in the slow transfers. Cheer up, Blades. Well said, Bully. I think it's an understandable overreaction. That is probably the best way to put it, or the best way that I can put it. It's been a huge shock to the system in terms of how well we were beaten. Certainly by the scoreline, not necessarily the pattern of play. And then how heads went down, there's been a collective sort of disappointment in it. So it's an understandable overreaction. But now, as long as we get the bodies in that we need, and that is the huge caveat that we need to mention, I still think we'll be all right, but still a lot of work to do. Difference between Ruben and Wilder is Wilder didn't take the hit, but Ruben is taking the hit for the performance and protecting his players. Maybe, yeah, that's probably fair. Betis is criminally underrated, in my opinion, in terms of coming out and communicating with the fans. Feel like it could happen soon. I completely agree. I'm fortunate enough to have got a little bit close to the club over the past couple of years, and some of the work that Stephen Betis does that goes unseen is really, really good. He's been a huge asset for our football club, and I will, as somebody who was quite sceptical of him before I was close to the club, I will go to bat for it. I think he's still a ruthless businessman, and I think he'll make the right decisions that he feels he needs to make that benefit the football club. But I think he's a really strong addition to our board, and I think we'd be a lot weaker without him. Matt says, if Wu comes in, I can see him starting at right back and Sariki pushing up as a right winger. What do you think? Could happen. Wouldn't mind that, actually. Wouldn't mind that. I think Sariki's a more accomplished or consistent player than Brooks at the moment, and I don't rate Sariki's defensive capabilities at the moment, as we've talked about a couple of times. This is the view from the mountain. If the two are the toughest midfielder and the right back, we need to push the button on a centre back. I'd take Mepham in a heartbeat, the Swedish lad, as backup later in the week. Then get the one-to-ways down the road. Yeah, we need a centre more than anything. I want a centre back in so that we can get rid of the centre backs that want out. So we could on Saturday against Swansea, we could technically play Tyler Bindon and Jack Robinson, but like the manager was saying in the press conference, you have to take all the factors into consideration and respect their thoughts. And Jack Robinson, if he wants to move to Wrexham, won't want to play. So why, because he won't want to get injured and all this sort of stuff. So we've got to take that into consideration. So I want a centre back in so Robinson can go. And same with Norrington-Davies if he wants to go to QPR. And I also don't think he's as good at centre back either. I think a lot of people would agree. So yeah, there we go. It's the view from the mountain, and I agree as per. Michael Fisher says, with his defence, we need 2 holding midfielders who don't move from just in front of the defence. That's an ideal situation, but who are you taking out of the side? That's the problem, Michael. With the centre midfielders we've got, I think we've boxed ourselves into a corner a little bit. Plus, I think the defence will be strengthened. Ben says, I think Wu will be a good signing if he comes, fits into the system Sayers plays. He started out as a winger and converted to right back. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Russ says, reality check required. 1 match in, 60 poor minutes granted, 30 that gave some room for optimism, attacking wise. I prefer business done earlier, but the mind should now be focused on what we need. Well said, mate. Time to worry is if they don't act on what we need soon. I get better players are available at the end of the window after the Prem business is done, but the damage could be done by then. Board need to act. summarised it very, very well. I don't disagree with any of that. Scott says exactly what I said earlier this week, Jimbo. We're scrambling now and taking so long to look at this foreign market, get the key players that we can pick up now and do the scouting elsewhere later, up the Blades, up the Ramble. I think, yeah, you said that this morning, didn't you, Scott? Because we were on again this morning. Since we are spamming YouTube with the Blades Ramble at the minute, it will calm down. But hello again to everybody that's watching me for the second time today. Ruben has so much potential as well. He talks a very good game. I think and he's done well at his previous clubs. I think there's a high ceiling there, but a little bit like the players he's bringing in, we need to see him sort of start to tap into that potential, and we've got to give him a chance to do that. Trusty Rufus says, I'm a Blade mate. It was a few years back, but was a bad result in a great season. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Oh, I don't know. No, that wasn't the League One season, was it? I might be wrong anyway. Says, might need to brush off the passport. I'm flying from South Africa myself to offer to play in defence tomorrow. We'll take you, pal. We'll take you. Do we need your ESC, ECS, whatever it is? I don't know. William says, would you? Who would be your centre-back of choice to sign? I like Charlie Hughes at Hull, but I think he'll be too expensive for what they're demanding, because I think we'll get into a bidding war with Coventry, so I don't think that will happen. I think because I favour that one because it's a permanent deal and we need some permanent signings. My alternative, through players that we have been linked with, I like Mepham as well. I think that's a cheap option, cheaper option than Hughes. I think his pace is an issue in this side, but he'll be a lot cheaper than Hughes and certainly Godfrey in terms of wages and overall package. If we can't get Hughes, I don't mind the Godfrey link, and I know a few people are against it, but we need pace in this back line because of the high line that we play. And Sayers has been vocal about, or I don't know if it's come out so much, but I mentioned it this morning in the transfer update. He wants pace in this back line, so players that can get back quickly when required. And I think Ben Godfrey fits that profile. So there are other players that I'd like us to be in for as well, but just those three that we've been loosely linked with, that at the moment I understand there's no interest, not no interest, but there's been no mention of Chris Mepham in Sheffield United circles other than the fan base. Godfrey is still in and around the equation, and Charlie Hughes I think will be too rich for us, if I'm honest. Plenty of free agents around at the minute. Why not get a few in with no transfer fee? I would. We talked about Ben Mee this morning or last night. I would look at Ben Mee as certainly initially a stopgap, but then huge experience for the young players that are in the side. He's certainly not got the pace that Sayers is after, though, has he? So we'll wait and see. Trusty Rufus says, I'm not worried yet. I think we'll sort the style out to suit offensively and defensive. Yeah, it's just how much time do you want to give it? How far down the road do we get, and how low do the players get in that time if we get too far away from what we want to be doing? Dave Oxley says, we're not in a good place. I don't trust this board one bit. Sayers for me is just a yes man and seems happy to just have a job. I can now see why the board got rid of Wilder. I disagree, but you won't be the only one that thinks that, Dave. Not at all. Shortlist hasn't changed for the majority of fans. Right back, 2 centre-backs and a central defensive midfielder. Anything else is a bonus. We need a right winger. We need a right winger. Anything else is a bonus. A right winger is needed. I'd hate to lose Robbo. That's your opinion, pal. That's absolutely fine. I think Robbo will be keen to go. Or I think Robbo is keen to go, if I'm honest. How fortunate we've been to have had 2 managers in Wilder and Hickey. Has any other club sacked a manager who achieved 92 points? No, but didn't Southampton immediately sack Nigel Adkins? And we can laugh at that in hindsight. Not laugh at it, but we can understand that in hindsight. Didn't they sack Nigel Adkins after he got him from League One to the Premier League in 2 seasons? And while they were still in the Prem, didn't they sack him there? So there has been ruthless sackings in the past. There's notoriously big sackings, but I don't know if for that specific thing, Tim, if that's right. Alistair says, fans seem to forget Chris Wilder's first spell started with several defeats, but we got promoted. Yeah, that's true. 4 defeats, I think it was, wasn't it? And then the famous Billy go get a crate in sort of thing. Should we poach Coventry's recruitment team? They seem to never miss. Well, they've got a bit of brass to throw about as well, haven't they? Any chance you could get Stephen Bettis on the channel? I know there's no chance of COH Sports coming on. would be good to actually see what's happening with the club. Maybe at some stage, David. Maybe at some stage. I have spoken with him previously, but yeah, I'll certainly ask the question, but it's unlikely. Michael says, Jimmy, what is O'Hare's position in the team? Because I haven't seen it yet. We need to play to proper strikers, as we did in the playoffs. Up the Blades, up the Ramble. He's best in a 10, Michael, isn't he? He's best in a 10, and I know a lot of people saying we don't play in a 10. Play with a 10 under Sayers, but I think we do. I think we do in possession, and I think out of possession he's asked to drop a little bit deeper. So, and I thought he did well on Saturday. I thought it was our better player. Alan says, Jim, will you be doing a Born to Beat Sayers feature this season? No, I won't, pal. No, I won't. We did a little bit of the nose picks, didn't we, last year? We might speak to Dave the Nose about doing another one of them where he picks his team. Those were segments in Countdown to Kickoff, weren't they, Al? And also we do some opposition views. We've got a Birmingham, Blues Focus have done a Birmingham sort of preview for us from their perspective. So that's out now on the channel if anybody's interested in having a look at what we're up against tomorrow night. And things like that we'll look at doing, but I'm also looking at streamlining everything I'm doing as well so that I can spend a bit more time with my family because we're on an awful lot. And with the channel going down, I like to be on stream a lot, but I don't want too much time away from them. So I'm trying to balance things out a little bit best I can. So things that don't always hit might not stick around. So if you like something on the channel, that's why we always say like, comment and subscribe and make sure you're liking the stuff and watching it, because if you're not, then I can only assume people don't want to see it. So we might not produce that sort of stuff going forward. It's all dependent on what the viewers react to and want to see, because that's what we're here for, isn't it? To provide hopefully entertaining content to people. Ben says, like Luke 09 would be good for us. Can't see him getting in at Sunderland. Don't rate him, mate. Don't rate him. I'll be honest. I think he works really hard and he's a committed player. But I think his commitment outrides his ability, in all honesty. I wouldn't be against it. It's certainly better than what we've got now. But I wouldn't be crawling to get him. Regarding the two holding midfielders, I would drop Hamer, I'm sad to say, but a bit stupid from me. We don't really have two holding midfielders either. Up the Blades, up the Ramble. I think it were a discussion that we had on 3 Mardy Blades, weren't it? Dropping Gus Hamer. Really interesting one as well. I enjoyed that. TT Blade says, there must be reasons why Godfrey has moved from club to club and not played much for any of them. Up the Blades, up the Ramble. Possibly, but it's whether you feel he was in the Premier League last year with Ipswich, wasn't he? So just because you're not good enough to play in the Premier League and now Serie A doesn't mean he can't play in the Sheffield United team in front of Reese Norrington-Davies, does it? So I think that there's levels in there, and that's the way I'd interpret it personally. No signings are a bonus. We are a promotion chasing team. These signings are necessary, especially how we ended the last season. It went from only a couple of signings to 5 or 6. Phil says, hello, Jimmy. To be fair to Reese Norrington-Davies, it was all right at centre. It was all right at right centre back in the past. The injury he suffered has affected his game big time. I hope this doesn't affect Blaster when he returns up the Ramble. Has Reese Norrington-Davies ever played right centre back? I may have missed it if he has. He's a left back, isn't he? He's a left back, Phil. And he was a great player before his injury. Really rated him. But he's just not been the same. We've got another comment saying, Ben Mee, great shout. Probably come for a few grand a week and massive experience. He's been training at Chef Wednesday apparently. So it'd be nice to nab him if they're looking at him. I wouldn't oppose O'Hare as a right winger. Didn't he play out there for Cov with Hamer in the 8 or the 10 role? I think it was Hamer in the 8, O'Hare in the 10, but they did move around a little bit like they have done for us. O'Hare's best in the 10 for me. And I think this is the ongoing problem, isn't it, with Gus, and it's the Gus Hamer factor again. Are we moving Callum O'Hare around to accommodate Gus Hamer? And that's like we moved Siddy at the weekend to accommodate. It's don't always sit great with me. Zzz says, anybody know what Big Chrissy Morgan is up to these days? Surely he's still got a bit about him still. Class is permanent and all that. He'd do well. He'd do well for us. He'd start for me on tomorrow night if he were available. Sorry, Jim. Left centre, I meant up the Ramble. Left centre back. No, he did okay in a 3, I thought. And this is all subjective, Phil, so you're not wrong. But I thought he did okay in a 3 at the back when he was sort of filling in for Jack O'Connell on the odd occasion. This were all before his injury, though, wasn't it? I thought he was decent at left wing back when he could get up and down. Then when we went to a 4, he's a full back as well. So I rate him in those positions, not at left centre back in a 4. Not for me. Craig says we could play Sariki at right wing if we get a decent right back in. Yes, we could. That's already been mentioned, and I agree. Not a bad shout at all. Is Dolan still available on a free, says Scott? No, he's gone to... Is he in La Liga now? Espanyol, I think he's gone to. Maybe better out there like a Doak, but at least he gives us options better than what we've got right now, I think, meaning, pal. Doak would be a great option. I'd love him. I think he massively improves us. He's certainly a huge upgrade on Andre Brooks. That's no slight on Andre Brooks. But he goes around the outside, doesn't he? Doak is a legit winger. So do we prefer that to somebody who cuts inside and sort of lays it on the floor to the... I'm up for it. But Doak would have... Kiefer Moore would have thrived off Ben Doak and his service. Just go get Brooks, says Jack. Would you take Eric Bailly? Yes, I would. Of course I would. Of course, I don't know where he is now. I don't know what he's doing now. But yes, I would. Hamer played deep for Cov sometimes, but he had units for centre-backs behind him. And Joe finally says, Jim, what about playing Hamer on the right wing? We played him on the left last season, and he was good enough to win Player of the Season, so why couldn't he do it on the right? Then the double pivot can go back to Peck and whoever else. I like Hamer centrally. It just needs to be more disciplined. If we had Vinny next to him, then it might not be the same thing, but it's very attacking, isn't it? I like Hamer in the 10, which we've talked about, but then you're sacrificing Callum O'Hare. I think Hamer on the left works because he cut inside onto his right where he's more comfortable and then he could have a shot. I don't think it works on the right-hand side where he comes onto his left because he wouldn't go around the outside. Oh, he's a free agent, is he, Charger? Interesting. Oh, right, okay, the 4-1 loss was when we lost to Forest in the playoffs. Right, okay, so we didn't go up. Fair dues. But the thought was there, Trusty Roofer. Brett says, Nectar Triantis could be about to be available at Sunderland. Just had a cracking season at Hibs as defensive midfielder. We could throw out as many names as we want, couldn't we, Brett, to be fair? And we might be miles off. There's been no links to this lad that you mentioned. I hope we're aware of it all and we're bringing the best players possible. But yes, as I say, thank you to everybody for joining me anyway in the comments today. It's been a tricky opening weekend for us. Well, it's an understatement, isn't it? Understatement and a half. But we need to stick with them. We need to keep the faith in the side. We'll be back here, myself and Jord Motson, tomorrow night for the Birmingham watch along. I think it will be a rotated side, but will there be anything that we can take from that performance, whatever it may be, in terms of a little bit of hope going forward? Let's hope it all changes from here, eh? But for now, come on, you red and white wizards. Up the Blades!